humanity. Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Good afternoon, and I want to thank our regulars for watching and anybody new who is watching. I am Robert Press, official media person. I'm with the Parkchester Times, the Bronx Chronicle, the Co-op City News, and Parrot TV. My co-host is Mr. Anthony RIVIECCIO, a man of many trades. So, Anthony, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good morning, Robert, and good morning, everyone. And of course, everyone, thanks for watching our wonderful show. And don't forget to press the subscribe button. My name is Professor Anthony RIVIECCIO. Some in the world know me as my predominant life being a financial advisor for RIVIECCIO Financial Advisors. Look out at the 401k plan this week. You'll have a happy week. My second life is that I'm an adjunct professor of personal finance at Herbert H. Lehman College and Monroe College. And Robert, this semester I'm teaching income tax planning. So it's going to be a very interesting year. And then, of course, my third and final life brings me to this show as the founder of a wonderful political club on the west side of the Bronx called Northwest Bronx Democrats.
Well, Anthony, on my blog at www.100%bronx.blogspot.com, I get information from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and there are a lot of tax preparers who are brought in and indicted by the U.S. Attorney for fraud.
Every year. And that's another story within itself, except to say, as our government creates opportunities for tax deductions, tax credits, which are all, legitimate and written in law. Of course, there are ways of stretching those laws and taking advantage of those laws. And many people do, whether they're tax preparers or I've seen it on both sides of the coin. I've seen it where people have gone to a tax preparer. Oh, I've got 39 kids. These are their socials. So
yeah, my $100,000 boat sank. My $100,000 boat sank. I want to write it off as a loss.
Say that again?
My $100,000 boat sank. I want to write it off as a loss.
Then I suggest you call RIVIECCIO Financial Advisors, 347-575-5045.
Okay, before we get into our regular Bidenomics segment, we do want to say we're sorry about Queen Elizabeth's passing. We hope King Charles III can continue, but he's coming in at age 73 because the Queen was there for, 50 years, I believe. So how has this passing of the Queen affected economic, the economic flavor of the world?
Well, let me slightly correct you on one thing, if I might. She has ruled England as a monarch for 70 years. And I think that's, for me, looking at it from an economic point of view, the bigger picture. Of course, Britain's government controls economic and foreign and trade policy. But of course, if you understand the government of England, most, if not all of those things at the end of the day get seen by the Queen. So any, economics from a foreign point of view, of course, as well as domestic, gets done through the Queen. Now, from an economic point of view, they've been one of our greatest economic allies since World War II. Trade with England and Europe and other neighboring countries have been very prosperous for all the countries since World War II. And again, I wouldn't give the Queen all the credit, but she deserves a significant amount of the credit. Now, King Charles, as we speak today, he's going to be coronated as the king. We don't know what his current, trade policies are. I mean, I'm not presuming he's going to keep things the same or change things radically, but what we do know is that now we have a new person on the hierarchy. Let's not forget about Miss Camilla, right? Who's now also been promoted in rank, and we know that There's always been an internal division, within Camilla and the Queen family. And then we also have to remember that we have a new British government that now with the Queen gone, we'll have to see how they interact with the royal family. And I say all of this together under a backdrop of knowing that since World War II, our greatest trade ally has been with Britain.
Well, also, Anthony, before you mentioned Bionomics, there's been word that their Ukraine workers are back in Chernobyl or really haven't left it, but there are still Russian troops there. And European countries are getting worried about another meltdown by Chernobyl. Could that be possible? And how is that affecting the markets as you go into Bionomics?
I'll say the latter part, I guess, for last. I will bring me into Bionomics. If you're not familiar with the events of the last 24 hours, you might know that Ukraine actually hit Russia with a sneak attack last night, which I thought was very clever. But to answer your question, I'm trying to find a way to assimilate that question. Think of it as you're walking into a burning bush and everything's on fire, and all you have is a cup of water. That's basically what you're looking at this particular moment.
So, all right, let's get into Bionomics then. What's new in Bionomics this week?
What's new in Bionomics this week? We have on Financial Focus University today at 5 p.m. If the old or new producer knows how to press the download buttons, we have a wonderful report on the Bob Press Gloom and Doom Index, presuming that the market closes on a good note at 4 p.m. today. There's been not a lot, a little bit, but good economic news this week. Jobless claims went down. As I always say, when jobless claims go down, right? What does that mean as far as unemployment insurance? Come on, Robert.
Less money paid out.
Exactly, right? But that also means if less money is being paid out, that also means more people are working.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say a lot. I just said it's good. But the best part of this indicator is that we are now back at May level. So it's a good sign. It's a good sign. We've also had a number of different things happen during the course of the week. Wall Street has decided, whether you agree or not, to take the lead on traditional work. What do I mean by traditional work? Get your butt in the office, right? There is no more remote work. And, I won't go into the politics of that unless you want to, but I think our local government has actually said, without saying it, you know what? Wall Street wants to lead the way on that. We'll just sort of follow their lead, but we'll let them, make the push. So again, I'm not going to get into the health considerations of everything.
And don't forget, Anthony, our governor, Kathy Hochul, has lifted the mass restrictions on mass transit also. So that's why probably Wall Street, is doing what they're doing.
No, they actually did it first.
He's probably reacting to them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean, that Wall Street has, again, rightly or wrongly, you could thank people like Jamie Dimon for this, as well as people at Goldman Sachs that have said there will be no more remote work. I walk into the office and see an empty chair, you're not here. And if I see it more than 3-4 days in a row, you're fired. They've already put this in policy. And the government says it's none of our business. So Wall Street is taking this lead. And what I believe is going to happen is, people will work, people will pay taxes, people will spend money while they're at work. So they're thinking it will be a way of generating our local economy again. Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if other states in the union start looking at this approach as well.
But the question is, are we out of the pandemic or not? I see you're still wearing your mask.
Well, now there are two questions. Well, that's a two-part question. I don't know which part you're asking me. Are you asking me from the economics of it or from the health of it?
Both.
Both. From the health of it, Bob, you know what? That's an easy answer. Why am I wearing the mask? I'll be glad to tell you. Because we were wearing the mask on this show when Bill de Blasio, courtesy of the federal government, said at 2.0, we're in the danger zone. Everybody's got to close down. The schools have to be closed down. And Mayor de Blasio, following that advice, swore it was the best advice in the world at that time, did exactly what the federal government suggested, closed it down. Now Joe Biden, of course, wants to open it up, and our local government says, yes, Joe Biden is right. Oh, well, again, like I always say, who's right or who's wrong? The one thing we know is a fact, is that the same people that indicated we were at 1.9 that made our schools in our city close, those same people are now indicating that we are 3 times higher than we were then, right? Mm-hmm. Because I don't know what our current numbers are, but I believe the last time I saw them, they were at 5.5%, 6%.
No, Manhattan's 3.5%. The Bronx, Queens, and Staten Island are about 6%.
Okay, so that's 3 times higher.
Mm-hmm. Now, although
you're asking me why I'm wearing a mask,
Anthony,
somebody's lying.
When Bill de Blasio came out, he came out with these thin black masks, and that stopped the pandemic. Okay, but then after 6 months later, people said those thin black masks don't work. But how did they stop the pandemic if they don't work?
It's a lot more than that. I don't want to digress from our right. Conversation and agenda, but it's a lot more than that. It's almost like a lifestyle, and unless people adhere, and it's hard for people to adhere to a lifestyle, especially when you turn on the television and you see 50, 60,000 people at last night's football game. Mm-hmm. Or you're going to turn on the Yankee series, which is at Tampa Bay. And because that's a very important series, I suspect there'll be 30, 40, 50,000 people minimum at these games. So, what we have to understand is it's a lot more than just numbers. It's a lot more than just math. It's a lifestyle change. Do I like a lifestyle change? I'll tell you what, and I'll say it in front of our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't ever want me to be your president because China would have been bombed.
What's that, Donald Trump?
It got nothing to do with Donald Trump. You're trying to make me sick. I'm talking as a U.S. Navy SEAL veteran. You come after me, I always win.
Anthony, you and I have been in my car, though, and I haven't worn a mask in 6 months now. Okay, because as you know, I'm immune to COVID.
Oh, stop it, immune to COVID.
Well, let's move on.
Bob, stop it. Aren't you the one that wrote that article that said you caught COVID? And then
that was just
Bob. Hey, the same people that told you were immune got fired for incompetency. Please.
No, he got improved. Dr. Katz of Health and Hospitals Corporation was the one who told me you're immune. You don't need.
Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't had COVID either. Now it could be because of what Bob's saying. Maybe I'm immune, or maybe it's the coffee I'm drinking, or maybe it's going to be this brand new cigarette after we get done with the show.
That's what it is.
Take Bob's advice, right? Yeah, we're all immune. Feel free to go outside, smell the roses, get sick again. Go ahead.
I told you, Anthony, it's all in your antibodies. And I don't know about yours. Yours are probably either drunk or smoked to death.
Well, Bob, I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not going to go into antibodies. But if they got anything to do with the stomach, I'll admit you got more than me.
All right, let's move into state politics with our governor's race. Kathy Hochul had a big 2-digit lead. Now the polls are saying Lee Zeldin is closing in. He's within a few points of her, the latest poll. Any opinion?
Yeah, she's got to change her voice. She is talking about, let me rephrase that. She's not talking about anything, which is actually part of the problem. She is suspecting that because we live in a Democratic town, and I guess to a certain extent it's the right suspicion, that she will just automatically win. You know, a lot of people are under this both impression and misimpression that once the Democratic primaries are over, the whole thing is over, right? And I don't believe that, because then we're saying we don't believe in our democracy. So, you know, Zeldin has been very focused on one issue. And the best part, in my opinion, well, the best and the sad part about this issue is that Zeldin doesn't have to say anything. All you got to do is turn on the radio and pick up the newspaper, and the issue is right there in your face. People are getting robbed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Elderly people are at risk, right? Cops are on the street, some of them doing bad things as a reaction to things that are happening in the street. So guess what? All Zeldin got to do is just go pick up the local newspaper and say, hey, look, guys, let me read this for you. Boom, 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 boom. Right? That's all he got to do. So what is Kathy Hochul doing? Kathy Hochul's going around saying, hey, it's a great day.
Anthony, you must be referring to the latest police crime stats here. Let me read them to you. All right. While the mayor says crime is, well, that murder and shootings are down, all other categories, the total number of crimes is 84,855 compared to 62,710 at this time last year, a gain of, or an increase of 35.31%. So it's crazy. Car thefts, which is grand larceny, auto is up 39%. Grand larceny, which is taking $1,000 or more, is up 46.3%. Burglary is up 33%. Felonious assault is up 19%. Robbery is up 39%. Rape is up 10%, but murder is down 12.4%. When we get to others, the transit crimes, all of these cops were put into transit, yet there were 1,533 crimes so far compared to 1,040 last year, almost 50% increase. Housing crime is up 12%. Petty larceny is up 43%. Misdemeanor assault is up 21%. What's called UCR rape is up 8%. Other sex crimes is up 8%. But shooting victims are down 12%, and shooting incidents are down 12%. But hate crimes are up almost 18%. So are we doing better? Well, yeah, so less people are being shot and killed, but is that helping us overall, Anthony?
Is that helping us overall? Oh my God, how do I answer that question? Except to say, let me put on my financial advisor hat on for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, anybody in need of life insurance, please feel free to give me a call, 347-575-5045. We have great rates and great benefits for beneficiaries.
And all of these people coming from Texas have no jobs, have no income, have no money. So they're being dependent upon the city. And where are they being placed? In shelters or in the worst areas. So what are they doing? They're learning how to do crime, because that's the only thing they're trained for right now. And they probably were trained for that in their home countries. And that's why they're coming to America, the land of opportunity.
The name of this program, the name of our show is called Talking Bronx Politics. So let me be a little both blunt and abrupt, if I might, for a moment. Okay. I am a registered Democrat. So let's get that out in the open, number one. But, you know, as a Democrat, I am very depressed. And simply because, you know, I'm not proud of my gray hair. You know, if it was me, it'd be back to brown, but a lot of people like it gray. But when I do look at it, it does bring me one idea. And that idea is called wisdom. Not wisdom in the sense that I know everything and people don't, but the fact that I've lived a couple of years, you know, before other people. You know, so our new generation of Democrats feel in regards to crime and safety, almost opposite of Democrats of generations past.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe Democrats of generations past were being discriminatory when they created laws to protect our city. And I'm not talking any Republican Party, because our laws of safety have been created since the 1920s. And those laws were created by Democrats. Matter of fact, they were created by Democrats and Republicans. And of course, over the decades, they've now been written by Democrats, including Democrats of my generation. But the Democrats of today's generation are leaving a very big void in public safety, believing that still current laws today might be violating people's rights.
Well, let's look at it this way. Look at where some of these people grew up. They grew up in safe neighborhoods. They didn't see all of this crime. And they said, well, and we saw it the other night at the Morris Park Community Association. The both of us were at this meeting where Assemblywoman Natalia Fernandez, who was running for state senate, said, we passed the law because there was this boy who stole the book bag and he was kept in jail for years. Okay, but she didn't explain why he was kept in jail. You know who the judge was on the case that kept pushing it off? Our current district attorney, Darcel Clark. She didn't say that. That Judge Darcel Clark kept pushing it off. All right, he was kept in jail and he couldn't afford the bail. And I agree with her. If he stole the book bag, fine, give him a chance. He shouldn't be in jail for all that.
Bob, and I'm glad you brought up that situation, but for another reason, right? Yes, that's all true, that what she, was implying, the other night. But who was that gentleman that got hit in the bodega, right? And he was charged, right, with a crime, and the Bronx DA originally, what was his name? Jose Alba, I believe.
I don't know. He was a grocery owner who was being robbed.
Okay, so now again, right? Democrats of my generation, right? I'm a store owner. Now, I don't know if he owned it or not. It sounded like he was a vested partner. It didn't sound like he was the owner. He sounded like he was a vested partner, right? Nevertheless, the man's in there trying to make a living, working hard. You're going to tell me the laws don't protect this man? This man, from the video I saw, he was in the back just doing his job, trying to help. Again, the Democrats of my generation would have said, oh, that young boy's got to be arrested, and this elderly guy should be going to the hospital for medical care. What happens after that, whatever. But today's generation, says, and our generation, by the way, is in government, right? So it's our government, right? It's our Bronx DA. It's the state assembly person that you mentioned. It's some of our state senators, right? It's some of our city council people that our new generation of Democrats, have this belief that, maybe we need to tweak the laws to the point where public safety really gets, violated.
We saw, and it was our Bronx state senator and Bronx Democratic County leader, State Senator Jamal Bailey, who sponsored the no cash bail law. And as we saw, Assemblywoman Fernandez said, well, we tweaked it twice. All right, we shouldn't have to tweak it again. If you had to tweak it twice, why didn't you get it right the first time? You didn't get it right the second time. You didn't get it right the third time. Now we're going to have a fourth time. Okay. And then the excuse.
And then, of course, some would say, well, what was the reason for tweaking it in the first place?
Because
again, if the issue is public safety, then in my, my generation of Democrats,
Anthony,
okay,
they blame the judges
differently.
They blame the judges because they say the judges don't understand the law. How could you write a law that a judge couldn't understand? A judge is supposed to understand every law. So how could you write a law that judges don't understand? And if they didn't, you should have educated them, okay, that this is what a judge can and judge cannot do, okay? But, I mean, I believe that Khalif Browder should not have been in there, but if he repeated his crime, he should have been in there, okay? I believe repeat offenders should be kept in jail, all right, on bail. And depending on the crime they do, that should be the bail, okay? It shouldn't be set too high for petty crimes, but if it's a petty crime that's committed 20, 30 times, there's something wrong there. That person needs to be kept in jail or put into a program that'll stop him from stealing.
Again, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I guess I'm just looking at it from a bigger picture point of view. Again, people forget the reasoning for Rikers Island in the first place, right? Rikers Island was originally created to be a holding center.
Right.
Okay. So whether it's our old generation of Democrats like me, and should we have corrected it then? Absolutely. And I blame our Democrats of my generation for not doing that. But guess what? Now we're not in power anymore. Now the new generation of Democrats are now in power, right? And how are they going to fix it?
Well, they're
yell
saying,
and scream and go to funerals and prayer services.
Again, Tony,
so the cows come home.
Tony, they're blaming the judges, Tony.
Center.
Tony, they're blaming the judges. They're saying the judges aren't getting the people out of jail.
Well, I'm going to take that one step further, and I'll bring it to a position where I'm sure you want to talk about at least a little bit at this moment. Okay. Again, I'm looking at it as a bigger picture. Okay.
All right, we got a minute,
Our
Tony.
local government has said, oh, you know what? We're going to get rid of Rikers piece by piece by piece. And we're going to call these new centers, I mean, not on paper, but they're basically going to be Rikers Light. And how are they going to do this? In very similar fashion that they're already starting to propose throughout the courses of New York City, including the Northeast Bronx. We're going to ask institutions like Jacoby Hospital to partner with the government and private vendors, right? And we're going to create, I'm going to call it a center. I know there's a name for it, but
it's jails without walls. That's what it is. Jails without walls.
So guess what? That's the new government, the new generation.
All right, well, Anthony,
of Democrats.
Anthony, we have to take a break here right now. So let's go to our commercials. It's time for our commercials.
America Open Market, AO Market, the best digital market for humanity, is a free multilingual borderless market open to international sellers with various languages included. With America Open Market, you may start selling in minutes after filling out the form. Comprehensive dashboard where you understand your sales, orders, and customers is available. You get paid directly, securely, and instantly on the America Open Market. You can sell your house, car, electronic laptop, CD player, boombox, phone, headphones, furniture, and clothing, and anything on AmericaOpenMarket.com where all your sales and customer needs are met. Register as a merchant today. You will not regret becoming a vendor at America Open Market. For further inquiries, contact us at aomarket@gmail.com. AO Market, best digital marketplace for humanity. Are you curious about financial literacy? Then take a look at Professor Anthony RIVIECCIO's new program on Parrot TV. It's called Financial Focus University. This is an excellent program to learn about questions related to your own finances post-COVID, if how you can manage your money, how you can work with your tax situation. And this is an excellent and informative discussion of financial literacy. With Professor Anthony RIVIECCIO, your financial problems will be solved at Parrot TV with Financial Focus University.
All right, Anthony, I want to talk a little bit about affordable housing now. We know that.
Quick question for you. Quick question.
Yes.
Do you know how to double your money?
I'll learn tonight, Tony, on
Tonight
financial.
at 5 p.m., Financial Focus University. Go ahead, Bob.
All right. We know about the problem in Throgs Neck with the 360 unit project over 4 blocks with the school on the next block. So that's 5 blocks for the 360 apartments and the school. But, you know, nobody really knows anything about it. There's never really been a true presentation about it. Yet the city, what is it? The city CPC, City Planning Commission, passed this thing, and it's now before the council. It was at the city council hearing on Wednesday, and we don't know yet if it's going to go to the full council for a vote. All right, but nobody knows about it. However, Tuesday night at the Community Board 8 land use meeting, there was a information session about a 330 affordable housing project and 700-seat school on 1 block where Visitation Church, Rectory, and school Visitation Church, Rectory, and school was. So you're getting almost the same thing as Throgs Neck, but in 1 block. It's a square. The school is on one side, and the housing is on the other 3 sides. Now, I was watching Charles Murder, the land use commissioner, land use chair over there, and he almost fell off his seat. And a lot of the board members go, well, School Construction Authority gave us a presentation last month, and they had half the land. What happened to the school? Did they sell half the land to this developer? And it was Tishman Spears. Someone who, and the presenter was someone who Mr. Merdlin knew, okay? I mean, it's amazing that even in Community Board 8, where is all of this affordable housing? Why is it coming now? Where, you know, and they're just trying to kill the North Bronx. They, you know, I know years ago they wanted to make it 2 million people in the Bronx, but this is crazy. I mean, you know, so, and with the 330 units, there's only going to be 70 parking spots because, as was said, we're 2 blocks within the subway. We're in a transit zone. Now, when I brought out something to Mr. Myrtle, I said, you know, in projects like this, I see a 20% homeless. He says, no, only 15% homeless, and I could take you to some of the best areas. So Board 8 is getting 15% homeless in there, which will be 55 units of homeless housing. They have their 338 homeless people in the building that Stag built years ago. And then they're getting now 140 proposed single men homeless shelter. And that's Community Board 8. It's amazing. Now you know why I moved out of Riverdale, Anthony. But I,
you know, Bob, let me, if I might, remind you, but more importantly, educate our younger audience about what I think is an amazing stat. In the 1970s, when the Bronx was of a white origin, our maximum population at that time was 1.3 million people. And then, of course, in the 1980s, white flight started to take place. And that 1.4 actually went as low as 630,000. It went as low as 630,000. If I had to give it a date, you could say around late 1980s. And then, you know, it went crazy from there. Today, we are at 1.5 million people. So we're actually bigger than what we were 40-something years, 50-something years ago. All not within 50 years, but within the last 10 to 15 years. Again, new governmental policies from our new generation of Democrats that, you know, I'm not against helping people. I'm not against trying to find ways to improve everybody's lives. But where do you put all these people you're inviting? I don't care where they're coming from. Texas, Utah, Venus. I don't care where they're coming from. Where do you put them? And guess what? There is no more space in the city, in Manhattan. Why? Because what we keep forgetting through all of this second industrial revolution in the Bronx is that you can grow going up, but the land doesn't move, right? So what happens? Everything goes up. So you're absolutely right. The North Bronx, which was very, I'll go back to the 1970s. It was very countryistic at that time. All three sides, the East, the Central.
To quote Ruben Diaz Jr., it was God's country. Remember that. He said, "This is God's country, which is open."
Okay. I mean, look, I remember, you can take it back to past Diaz. I'll never forget Adelpho Carrion coming into Norwood in the early 2000s, calling it the little nitty United Nations, and again, there's nothing wrong with a wonderful, diversified neighborhood, especially if you can get implemented the quality of life structures involved. But I'm just saying, if 50 years went by and we actually increased in size, right? And I don't care what the denomination is. I don't care what the race is. What did you hear last night or the other night at that same Morris Park Community Association meeting? We heard that the New York police force is at the same employment rate than they were in the 1970s, right? So that's telling me, so you mean we went up from 1.4 to 1.5 million people, and the employment in the city police force during that same period of time is zero?
Well, let's blame Bill de Blasio. Bill de Blasio, in his first year, had the City Planning Commission say, buildings that were built in World War II and the buildings that you talk about in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the pre-de Blasio buildings had a 6-story height. Now, why did they have a 6-story height? Because those ladders on the truck, and I got this from a previous fire chief, all right, the ladders can only reach 6 floors safely. And I was told I wouldn't live above the 6th floor if I was you. So now you have de Blasio adding 10 more feet to an 8-story building. The ladders can only reach 6 stories. What about those poor people on the 7th and 8th floor? And then you have now buildings that are concrete, supposedly fireproof, which they really aren't. They're only fireproof for a certain amount of time, that go 12, 15, 20 stories, okay? It's just, you just keep building up. And these prisons that they're going to make, the borough prisons, are going to be 20 stories or more. And again, what's going to happen if there's a fire in one of those buildings? All right. Plus the fact that they won't have the medical facilities that Rikers had. Rikers has an infirmary with any.
And Bob, and I don't mean to harp on my own party, but later on, as you know, and we'll talk about in my segment later on, that we're going to be supporting a non-Democrat. But again, this thing to me is bigger than that, right? This thing to me comes to new Democrat policies.
Right.
All these buildings that you're talking about are going up. You're forgetting to tell the audience the most important part, which is they all have, quote, lottery housing components. And we have already found, it's a known fact, that these lottery housing components mean that 10% of the neighborhood that you're implementing that policy will come from the neighborhood. Where will the other 90% come from? From anywhere. They'll come from Queens. They'll come from Brooklyn. They'll come from Cheyenne. So why should they have a vested interest in making sure the neighborhood is clean? Why should they have a vested interest in coming to community board meetings or community meetings? They don't even know where they live at.
That's right. And well, let's go into the Morris Park Community Association meeting. All right, this was Wednesday night. We had officers there, and we had the youth officers first talk, and they cover the youth 14 and older. They're with the Explorers. They go into parks and try and talk to kids who are smoking or whatever, don't smoke, you're not supposed to, this and that. But what happened after complaints from the audience? What did the officer say? We don't have enough officers, all right, to do everything that the community wants. All right. Then we went into the community affairs officer who got shot down. He said, well, our officers are writing tickets for these paper plates, but the district attorney isn't prosecuting them. Our officers are doing the work, but they're going nowhere. Then we had the crime prevention officer. He was the one who went into what Anthony just said, that there are 3,500 less police officers today than before. And they're leaving at a rate of 2,500 per 6 months when only 500 new recruits come in every 6 months. So he said the police department is bleeding at all sides, and especially in the precincts. They are losing valuable help. They're retiring, and you're getting in new cadets who have to be trained. And he said it's tough being a police officer now. Then what happened? Our assemblywoman got up. My assemblywoman, you're no longer in the 80th, Anthony. And she spoke about how she, her office was doing the job. And what happened though? We were looking for somebody, Anthony, weren't we? Who were we looking for? We were looking for the person who is running to replace the 80th Assemblywoman, Natalia Fernandez. But he, who was nominated in a backroom session, and there are a lot of people that are mad from it, according to Ruben Diaz Sr., who seems to know the inside dope on this, okay? This man came in, shook hands. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm going to be your next assembly person, blah, 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 thinking because he's the Democratic candidate. He went to the back. Then when things happened, we looked for him. He was gone, right, Anthony? What happened to him?
Yes, but Bob, but let me slightly correct you if I might. You're absolutely right. Ruben Diaz Sr. gave us a lot of inside dope. He deserves credit for that. But I would also, and I don't know if you've read his articles, I would also congratulate Mr. Howard Jordan, who's a Latino reporter.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can read his articles in several independent Latino magazines under the political section. I thought did a very good job in his most recent article talking about how Ms. Fernandez's arms were sort of twisted to pick Mr. John Sakaro. It wasn't exactly an overwhelming endorsement. But to get back to your point, yes, there were a variety of questions asked, and after both John Sakaro came into the meeting, and he had his own little meet and greet. Hi, my name is John Sakaro. Boom, 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 boom. And as soon as the neighborhood questions started, I don't know who you were looking for. I turned around and I didn't see John. And I give Natalia, of course, a whole bunch of credit for being there. I don't give her credit for her answers, but I give her credit for at least being there. John, we missed him.
I was waiting for her to introduce him, but she never got the chance. And she took a beating when she said, well, I want to move this Jacoby Just Home over to Waters Place. Because what did the people in the audience say? That's still in the district. We don't want it in the district. We don't want it at all. Okay? But she slipped, Anthony, on one thing. She said, well, during the budget process, HHC notified me in March and sent me a PDF that I haven't opened, and it was in my email. So what was that PDF in that email? Was that the Just Home project? And we're going to go now into the Northwest Bronx Democrat segment. So take it away, Anthony. It's your segment.
Thank you, Robert. Ladies and gentlemen, this week on our Northwest Bronx Democrat segment, I want to inform you about a decision our organization has made. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I will in the future weeks. But I think it's important that you hear it from me first. You'll shortly hear from our president, and it will have an effect with me on this TV show in the upcoming weeks, which is why I'm bringing it up in the first place. If people are not aware, Northwest Bronx Democrats has supported and will endorse the 80th Assembly candidate, Miss Phyllis Natasio. Without talking about Ms. Matasio at the moment, I can tell you why it was a very easy decision. Because prior to Bronx County picking John, we decided to go with Phyllis even before they made their decision. Because quite simply, as our organization has always done, we look at quality of life, community, people first. They may not be the best candidate off the top. We supported many that were, many that were not. But we know whether they won or lost, we went to bed with a good, healthy conscience because those are the people that we want. Those are the people that we represent. The average person in our club has a residency of 25 plus years and a community work resume of 15 plus years. So this is why these issues are very important to us. In the 80th Assembly District, as we call her, Mother Tiz or Phyllis, is a very outspoken advocate in regards to the 80th Assembly District. So we picked Phyllis even before county made their choice. In the upcoming weeks, we will talk about that. But I'm bringing it up today, not just as an announcement. I'm bringing it also up today because, yes, it will affect the way I handle the show going forward for the next couple of months. Of course, I'm one of the co-hosts. Of course, I have this segment. And of course, we will be very, very actively involved in the campaign over the course of up until November the 9th. So there will be times that Mr. Press, my co-host, will be handling things on his own. That won't be for any other reason but for transparency. One of the things we want to do on this show is be very transparent. I'm sure most people know that Robert and I try to be very transparent, which is why all of Bronx County loves us, both Democrat and Republican. But I think it's important that the audience know that we are actively involved in the 80th Assembly race. Now, of course, the 80th Assembly race doesn't represent all of the Bronx. So when it comes to talking about issues, activities, events that have nothing to do with the 80th Assembly District, well, ladies and gentlemen, then I'll be back. But until that happens, Bob, I'm sending it back to you.
Okay, well, as Anthony says, it seems like the 80th Assembly District is going to be the only real race this year. I don't see Jeffrey Dinowitz losing. I don't see, what's his name? Well, we might have in the 78th, we have a new candidate, but I don't see the Democratic candidate in the 78th losing. I don't see LaToya Joyner losing. I don't see Carl Hasty losing. I don't see any other possible candidate or Democratic candidate for the Assembly except in the 80th Assembly District having a problem. And what I have a problem with is I'm a political reporter. I live in the 80th Assembly District. I live 2 blocks from the county headquarters. How this meeting was held in secret, I don't know, with people who weren't county committee members. Okay, I had spoken to the district leader, Remy Salas, and said there were only 30 county committee people, and I know of at least 2 of them that aren't in the district, who don't live in the district. Okay, I wanted to be at that county committee meeting. All right, but obviously Jamal Bailey, the county leader, held a secret meeting so he could put his secret person in. All right, now I defeated John Sicaro Jr. as a district leader. When I say that, I mean I was supporting his opponent, Marco Sierra, who defeated John Sicaro Jr. And if you're going to talk about help from Assemblywoman Fernandez, both said to me that John said, yeah, she could have done a lot more for me. She didn't really do anything for me. And she said, well, yeah, I could have done a little bit more for John, but he didn't do anything on his own. So, all right, I just hope that that's going to be the same thing, that she's going to really give him help like she gave him for the district leader race, and he's going to do his part just like he did when he ran for district leader. And we could see that as we saw in the Morris Park Community Association meeting. Now, I am not going to be with Anthony. I'm going to be here. I'm as a reporter, and my fame is from the 2018 Democratic primary for the 14th Congressional District, which I moderated between Alessandria Ocasio-Cortez and somebody who looked like Alessandria Ocasio-Cortez, who then Congressman Joe Crowley sent. And I say that because when candidate Ocasio-Cortez opened up her speech, she said, "Oh, look, he sent somebody who looks like me." And you know what? I believe that our debate was the turning point of that whole election. The fact that Joe Crowley didn't show up.
Bob, yes. I believe it was the Parkchester Times, but I could be wrong.
Yes.
Was the ones that held the debate, and of
yes.
course you were the
which is affiliated with Parrot TV.
But you know, I got to tell you though, every time you say that, you know, I worry. I don't worry about us because we get credit in more ways than one, so I don't worry about us. But I do worry about the people that you forget. You know, again, you had many people on that campaign that I worked side by side with behind the scenes, doing videos, doing emails.
They were videoing the debate.
So, like I've always said, I think, you know, and knock on wood that it happened, that it was an accumulation of all of those things, of which at that time, it wasn't just your debate. There were several debates that.
Correct. You know, well, that was after.
I think it was just accumulation of all of that. I'm not saying that you weren't in the right place at the right time, but you know, when you say it that way, I think you're indirectly not representing.
Anthony, it made me a movie star. Okay, it made me a movie star.
A movie star.
Yeah. I was at a mayoral press conference, and 6 reporters turn around and say, "Oh, I saw you last night on Netflix."
Okay.
Okay. Yes, so I was a movie star, and I am. Okay. But let's move on a little. That's the only problem that I have with the Bronx Democratic County Committee, okay, or the Bronx Democratic County Organization. Everything is kept secret, okay? They don't like reporters. They don't like it. When you criticize the county leaders, they take it to heart, all right? Jose Rivera did it. Carl Hasty did it. Marcos Crespo did it, and now Jamal Bailey is doing it. Okay,
see, Robert, this is why we're probably, since our inception in 2009, the only real independent Democrat club. Because whether you like it or not, and I encourage it, and our president Sheila Sanchez also encourages it. Okay, we speak our mind, whatever our mind thinks. And of course, what people forget in today's new generation is that in the old generation, if we disagreed, we would talk, we would debate, we would have conversation. Today, oh, I'm going to shoot you in the back.
Well, it appears, Anthony, and I'm going to go back to when Zaccaro Jr. lost the district leader race, okay? At that time, his boss, Rafael Salamanca, was a candidate for borough president. The fact that John Zaccaro Jr. lost his district leadership, all right, meant that Rafael Salamanca had no East Side support. And I was told by one of the honchos in the Bronx Democratic Party, who I believe is now the political director, you killed a borough president candidate with that loss. Okay. Well, it appears that Mr. Rafael Salamanca, Councilman Salamanca, looks like he's running again for borough president in 2025, when he's going to be term limited out of office. Okay. He will be running against Vanessa Gibson, who will be running for her second term. Now, I don't know if Jamal Bailey is against Vanessa Gibson. It sounds to me like he was the first time if I shot down Rafael Salamanca, because that seemed to have been county's pick, because they didn't have one after he left the race. And it looks like Rafael Salamanca is going to be county's pick for borough president this time in 2025. Yes, Kevin, you're late, but you can always watch us on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing over again and again and again and again. but I feel sorry for our borough president, Vanessa Gibson. If this looks like what you just said, the county organization led by Jamal Bailey is going to stab her in the back. Why else would Raphael Salamanca be up in Co-op City with Kevin Riley, okay, when Vanessa Gibson did a food giveaway with Kevin Riley a year ago?
I don't think, Bob, you don't have to go any further than the other night. And on that note, Mrs. Salamakia, if you're still in the Dominican Republic on vacation, please get me an extra large t-shirt. I think that should tell you everything you need to know, that John Sakaro, despite all of the butt kissing that Miss Aisha Bravo attempted to do, it still didn't work. So now we know where the cards are played. And as far as Vanessa Gibson being concerned, you know, as some people know, I was the West Side manager for borough president candidate Fernando Cabrera. It's not a secret. They were never in bed together. Vanessa Gibson in Bronx County was never in bed together. So it would not surprise me if, especially after the Democratic meeting that just took place, it would not surprise me if they're even less friendlier than what they are now.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, Anthony. Is there any other topic that you want to speak on?
I want to wish everyone a very good day. Happy Friday. I hope your summer was good. Mine was terrible. Be careful with women out in the street, right? If anybody doesn't know, I'm single. So Bob's telling me we got airtime. Look out. I'll start playing Dear Abby.
All right. Well, Anthony, I just want to say one thing. All right. Now, at that Morris Park Community Association meeting, Assemblywoman Fernandez said another interesting comment. She said, school is starting. Speed cameras will be operating 24 hours a day. But I know and she said that she had gotten some speed camera tickets, but she added that I know where the speed cameras are now, so I'm careful.
Bob, since you, and I'm only going to talk about it because you're the one that brought it up. You mentioned earlier how important you thought housing was as a problem. Well, ironically, of all people at that meeting, ironically, our candidate, Mother Tiz, Phyllis Natasio, asked Natalia Fernandez what I thought was the question of the night, which is, well, if you're against what's happening in Food Town, and if you're against what's happening at Jacoby Hospital, then why is your state committee woman, the one that you just picked, the one that you just flushed, the one that you just decided to join you on your ticket, why is she taking her union, which is Local 79, and all of a sudden getting involved in the fight to support public housing, not be against it? And I believe her answer was, oh, well, she has a right to her opinion.
Right.
Now, you know what? Right. Natalia, and I'm going to give her credit, Natalia's right. She is entitled to her own opinion. But as a political strategist, that tells me, forgive the French, you're an idiot. Because you're telling me that 3 months ago you put together a political team and you can't control them? Of course they're entitled to their own opinion, including me when I call you an idiot.
Anthony, the union that is in favor of the Food Town upzoning will probably be the union that's supporting Natalia Fernandez. And that's about it for today. Well, thank you for viewing, and we wish you a good day and have a good weekend. Thank you.
Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, The Voice.